All right, okay. I picked the unknown unknowns as our name.
I love that, man. So Donald.
Yeah. It stuck with me after a while.
Donald.
And I don't know why, but it just makes it more fun. Because it means absolutely nothing, but everything at the same time.
It does. Donald, man. Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah. So, oh God, I feel awkward doing these things.
Go ahead.
So, I've been on LinkedIn for a little bit now, and generally starting to make headway into conversations about AI. A lot of this stuff has lived in my head or in conversations with ourselves, but I've been finally starting to get out there a bit more and publicizing the kind of thoughts ideas I've been talking about. One of the things that vexes me quite a bit, and I think you as well, is that a lot of the stuff we've talked about years ago and obviously haven't put it anywhere. No one knows that we've said these things, and then these things have come to pass, and then you try and do that thing where it's like, oh, I said this, and everyone's like, yeah, sure, whatever, and you look like the crazy guy, with the the Ender's Nye cardboard shirt on. So this was one of the ways to kind of like get out there and be like, not necessarily for the ego boast, but to say like there is a pattern and there's a trend that you can foresee in certain elements when we talk about these things. And then I think what this podcast is hopefully going to do is not just explore those patterns, but to discuss it on a wider topic as well. So if we're talking about things that we can see and foresee and kind of simulate how we kind of possibly see things going, based on history, present patterns, and where things are kind of leading to from a wider network. I think too many people are looking from a sector-specific angle. So, if you come from pharmacy, all you're looking at is the future of pharmacy. You don't think, how does the traffic light system in Uzbekistan somehow affect the pharmacy industry with you as a corporate global in America? Like the connection to that for you might seem completely abstract and not connected, but I can guarantee you to some degree there will be a pattern that leads there and leads back, and you'll be helping each other out without even knowing it. I think that's the way human beings are kind of operating these days, is that this sort of like non-talked about information sharing that just somehow finds itself, and then when people analyze it and kind of stumble across there are similarities with the two, we put it together and go, oh, look at this new thing we found. But in reality, I think they've both been designed at the same time with a similar thought process. I don't know how that happens. That's the mystery of the universe. I don't know why or how we're able to connect these dots, but it's kind of there. And so what we're going to attempt to do is, though we come from a very media film background, and yes, that will primarily be our kind of main, not focus, but our position, we would like to explore things that go a little bit beyond our field. Obviously, we're not experts in all those departments, so we're just sort of looking within the very superficial means of what we understand about that industry and how it could work through narrative scenarios and conversations. What we're hoping for really is specialists in these departments to kind of vocalize from more of a educated position about whether they think that is possible, or we're thinking in completely the wrong department and there's this whole other thing that we're not thinking about. Because I think that's one thing I've really loved when kind of going into LinkedIn is I've met specialists who will have made me completely change my approach to a topic because of their specialty, because of their background. And that's been fantastic. So I think I want to explore that more and keep having those conversations. But for now, we're going to be looking primarily at AI in filmmaking. It's a real hot topic right now. If you are on LinkedIn and you're interested in AI, it will be all over your feeds. It definitely is all over mine. And we've got a range of people, from the people that say it's the greatest thing known to man to the people that says it's hell on earth and we need to abandon it as soon as possible. And there's a bunch of us that's kind of in the middle or in between about what we feel and how we feel about it. And there's a few things, I think. One thing from my perspective, I definitely want to eradicate some of the myths around AI filmmaking. I think there's definitely a lot of people that have assumptions of what they think it's like to actually make an AI film. And I would like to conquer some of those and say there's a reality to how it's actually done. And then also, let's not dismiss the other side of the argument, which is the fears around AI filmmaking and what it can produce in terms of mass production of just terribly made movies. But yes, it's on the cheap, but what's the point? What's the purpose of it beyond the fact you can just make it? Like any innovation or innovation tech, there are lots of areas where you find yourself thinking, what's the purpose of it and how it's integrated? And the early stages are usually the stages where everyone's just sort of flinging everything at the wall and hoping something sticks. And I think we're at this stage right now. Right, so that's the kind of general ethos of what we're doing. We're probably going to cut all this out because it's really long. But I'd like to introduce my kind of co-host for this journey that we're going to go on, which is Nicholas Glean. He's a senior lecturer at the University of Sunderland. He's the founder of Mikigami Limited.
Yes.
Yeah. And has had a history of not only working within film and filmmaking, broadcast, and also, I would say, in essence, workflow designs to some degree as well. To an element of that as well. And also, back in the day, looking into games and simulation games and that type of process as well in terms of writing. And also happens to be my dad. So thank you very much,
no problem,
Pa, for joining me. So
glad to be here, son. glad to be here.
I'm glad. So you were just talking about, before we got going here, about the kind of AI films you've kind of seen on your kind of LinkedIn feed, or generally what it's about. What kind of things have you kind of seen?
Well, literally, I've been watching, I've been getting a lot of AI cinema kind of discussions, which I remember last year didn't exist. So last year, this time, a lot of those were not around, and they were very hard and few to find. And if you did have AI filmmaking, it was very rare. It was like outside of the UK or outside of Europe, basically, in that regard. And then all of a sudden, they've just been inundated with tons and tons of people talking about AI cinema, AI this, AI whatever, in terms of filmmaking. And it's been quite interesting because I found myself kind of replying to posts kind of where people go, it's going to take us over. It's going to, acting's not going to be the same. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. And I've just gone in there and said, no, kind of like calm down the situation and say, look, we need to look at these other areas of things that we need to think about. But I've spent a lot of time last year in particular, well, actually since about 2023, seriously, 2023, beginning to look at different kinds of ways to think about AI filmmaking. And I think there's different kind of approaches. There's one which sees it as the kind of tool and the tool in the system that you use, something like Kling or 11 Labs that does a job for you, cleans up your audio, gives you an extra clone voice, creates an image, and then animates the image for you, and then you construct something from that. So those things I would call kind of tools. Those are the software tools you can use. And now we're seeing, towards the end of last year, we're seeing the integration more of the kind of generative AI chatbots that have come in there. So it's kind of generative AI all the way through in terms of visual images and audio. Suno is a killer. I mean, what they managed, that's another topic for another day, what Suno managed to do with Udio was very, very interesting. And I think...
What are with these names as well? These are crazy names. Where are they all coming from?
It's interesting. But Suno and Udo have managed to get, copyright information that allows you to kind of create legitimate music on these channels, which is like, okay, so there's buy-in now from the music industry, into creating, you're using these kinds of platforms or allowing you to use these platforms to create things, which is, I find, very, very fascinating, because what happens when you turn that to visuals, which is what the OpenAI Disney deal people thought was going to do, which it didn't do. But you feel that there's this element coming where the licensing will go, okay, you're allowed to do this, now go out there and create. I mean, that's very interesting. So again, in sense of tools, the thing I was looking at, makes brief, is when Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT come into an interaction into that system. So you're working with them to create that as part of your workflow. So not just in the ideation element where you talk to Claude or to create to create the idea and go through. They're trying to get it now to speak in the process where you're in the editing room and you can make suggested cuts and all that type of stuff.
Kind of agentile as well.
Well, that's interesting, because that's slightly separate, because you've got, that's where the kind of chatbot-ish...
kinda agentile, okay.
You've got the kind of chatbot stuff that comes in there and works in that way. Now we're getting agents. Now the concept of the agent inside of the software in the kind of chatbot range that does things for you in two capacities. One capacity references, suggestions, the other capacity actually doing things for you within the software.
I've got to pause on that bit because I need to explain. My God, Agentile and permissions. Oh Lord. So I'm doing the ChatGPT's one, Codex. I know nothing about coding, never came from that background. I was just interested in exploring, can someone with absolutely no coding background utilize this tool set to do so? The answer is no, by the way. Okay, coding is super complicated. I've learned more about coding as a result, as in terms of like how it operates and how things work. And I really appreciate the knowledge that I got. But ChatGPT really should have told me, brother, this ain't for you. You need to know how coding works to use this effectively.
Can I just say that this is incredibly embarrassing for you to say this live in a chat, considering your mother has been...
Yeah, I know. Literally, every coding book under the sun was in our household. Not once did I pick it up.
And all of a sudden...
Computer science expert. And not once have we had a conversation about it.
You are so the poster child, aren't you, for this system where he goes, what do I need? I just turn up.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, all of us that had to learn to fail at coding in C, and you're going, no, I'll just turn up and do it.
I'll just pop up and they're just like, do work for me. And it didn't do that at the end, and I just went in a round circle. And it basically kind of just said at the end, I guess, like, look, bro, like the amount of detail you need to go into to do X or what you need to do is unbelievable. Anyway, that wasn't the point I was going to make. The point I was going to make was, I had this conversation with you before. I just want now it to be public. So I might be going over a little bit of what we've already talked about, the permissions, every time I'm like, can you look in this folder? I was like, oh, I want to do that, but Windows said no. I want to do that, but I haven't got permission. And then it asks you, do I have permission? You got to click yes. You got to click yes every single time you want to do it. Though. I just want to be like, no, I sell my soul, have my laptop, just do it. Just do the thing. I don't want all this level of friction to kind of get done in terms of permissions and things like that. But then it made me hark back to that conversation we had before, which is, Agentile only works in a system that accepts it.
Yeah.
And I don't think Windows and Mac, or Microsoft, I should say, and Mac are going to accept third-party softwares being able to integrate themselves within their OS systems. Because I know OS systems, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, like I don't think they're going to do that because I think that puts too much fear into like what that can be replicated effectively, and they don't want that to happen. So I think they're going to start putting these blockers in to stop it. And what Microsoft and Apple will eventually do is they'll integrate their own version of that within their systems, and you have to use those versions. Now, here's where I think it's going to be fun, is I think these AI softwares, the larger ones anyway, are going to create their own computing system and their own OS system, and that will spun a new line. So we've had the Windows, Mac, Linux dominance for quite some time now, but I strongly imagine if they haven't already been creating it, we will get a ChatGPT computing system, a Claude computing system, a whatever the company is large enough to kind of do this, that primarily creates a laptop with its function to be an AI laptop, to integrate it within every single facet of its coding, that allows you to do all kind of weird, wonderful, and creative things that you'll have access to without the limitations of having to go through another company or party. That's what I suspect to be the case. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think before I was talking to your sister. She mentioned everything is, it's got AIs everywhere, but everything runs through Excel. People still use Excel all the time. And I went, what happened to Lotus 123? Right? So going back over the years, Lotus 123 was the main software for kind of spreadsheet information. So if you go back and you look at it that way, you should be able to, going forward, build your own software, spreadsheet type software
system,
on your own system. So long as it has a certain amount of data and stuff you could give it, you should be able to build it purposefully for what you need it to do. So I think what these companies are doing is indirectly the more they gatekeep and the more they allow Claude and OpenAI and Google only to be the ones that speak to them and the only channel that's very expensive as the prices are going up per tokens. Once this kind of goes up, that creates that doesn't expand mass production the way that people want. It will control it even more. I think what you're suggesting will be much more with my own system. I've got my mini Mac. I've got my own version of DeepSeek, or the new one, I can't remember, Glump or whatever it's called, the new one that's come out. Or I can have
just say any random name. I'm sure there will be some sort of AI system that's called that
will allow you to construct, and you'll be able to construct your own spreadsheet type system pertaining particularly to what you want to do.
Yes.
I can see that happening. So I think you're right in the sense of where the reliance on the control of the older systems will be under threat. Even though that's what they'll make even more money from, it will still be areas that will allow that to kind of happen.
That level of kind of potential disruption.
Mm.
To hark it back into filmmaking, you mentioned that there was a tool process, then you mentioned there's a sort of, I guess, workflow.
What I was saying is, I would say, look, there's a tool process, there's an assistant process,
Assistant, that's what
and
you
now we're moving to a kind of an agentic process.
got.
And now because this is happening in different areas, it's all happening in coding and finance mostly. All these things are kind of really moving. Once it comes into film and media, it will just all come at the same time. And I think that's going to be incredibly overwhelming for the industry, and incredibly overwhelming for the industry model that exists at the moment, and incredibly overwhelming for the educational system that models itself on the industry model. It's just going to be overwhelming for everyone.
I agree too. I think the kind of like, if you want to be the doomsayer of AI, I think the workflow that we currently rely on to make film or media content is going to get obliterated. That's the element of doomsday that I can agree to. I think the workflow and how you approach it has to change. Or what I mean by that is to integrate AI into what you're doing. If you just want to make traditional media, because I still think that's going to be a space and will exist. This whole idea of like authentic, human-based, made, created content will still exist. I don't think that's going to just get obliterated, right? We still got newspapers, we still got opera, we still got theater. Like those things still exist. We're not going to get rid of them, but I think trying to force AI into that bracket is the square peg round hole kind of methodology of thinking. I think if you're going to create a new form of content, as you're calling it, synthetic media, then you need a new workflow. You need a new approach. And you can't just be like, okay, we've done all the footage, I've shot everything, here's the stuff, okay, now AI it in Premiere Pro. It's like, that'll be incredibly limited. It'll be incredibly limited, and that will make your work easily replicatable by others, and you will lose that kind of, not authenticity, I don't know if that's the right word, but you will lose an essence of what makes you unique to that process, because you're doing a process that's mass production, like formula. Like, as long as I can work out, if there's a style in which I do an advertisement, and I can write in ChatGPT or whatever, the Premiere Pro, whatever, I can have a conversation to say, do this kind of shot here, this kind of shot here, this kind of music, this kind of BPM, and then just keep churning it out. All I need is the content, and then I just keep chucking out that output. Well, then someone could take that output and go break this down and use that as a reference, and now do it with my edits and my footage. And then everyone's making exactly the same content in a similar style, and whatever's like the next trending style that kind of takes off, you take that style, you break it down, you replicate it, and you just shift it out. So we're just getting millions of these replications. And I think that's what the authentic people argue against, because they're saying that's what you're going to create. And I do agree to some degree there are people who are doing that. But I think the alternative to it is having conversations with your edit could have more impact than you think.
Absolutely.
Having this like relationship, so to speak, with something that you're working on, in terms of your emotions and your thoughts about what you're making, the process, the purpose, the emotion of the scene or the scenario, whatever. It's going to be an incredibly different way of working. I think it's going to be a really, really different way of working. Quite a lot of times, as an editor myself, quite a lot of the times, just me, headphones, and 8 hours. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of cracking my way through. Then I send it off to whoever needs to see it. They give back feedback, and then I go back into that edit room again. So the idea of having a conversation live, because I talk to my edits to myself. So the only difference now is that I'll get a reply. You know what I mean? I'll be able to have that conversation when I say, like, does this hit this emotional output that I'm expecting? And it might say, yes, it does in some degree, but have you thought about these other things? Have you thought about how that connects to this thing? If I'm running a series, it might also go, oh, we could go back to episode 3 and we cut it in that style. Maybe we replicate that to reinforce this meaning or purpose. The things that you don't necessarily think about there and then in the edit that, because you can't, as a human being, there's only so much we can kind of keep in our brains when we're making stuff. A lot of the stuff ends up being kind of intuition, as we call it, which I think is the kind of subconscious recollection of themes and patterns, but it's another argument for another day. But the AI will be able to vocalize potentially some of those subconscious things to bring it to the foreground, to be like, oh, actually, I didn't think of that. Let me try doing it from that perspective. And I think for me, that's a completely different way of working.
I think you're right. I think what's interesting is that when you're doing an edit, they claim it will be a junior editor, but I don't think it will be a junior editor. It may be a junior editor in the sense of what the agent actually does as it's learning the patterns.
Yeah.
But it will need you to start doing something, and then it will follow what that pattern is
lead,
that you're doing. But in terms of the data it can pull into things, which could be quite wide, because you think about it, it could be all the things online, or it could be also getting it from your own data that you've constructed. So the amount of data it could pull in to use will make it an experienced editor.
Yes.
Right. And that's the difference. It makes it so it's not just a junior, it may be a junior editor. It will have different levels. There'll be like a junior editor because it needs you to show it what to do. But then after a while, if you're referring back to a certain pattern of things you're doing, it is no longer a junior editor in that way. And plus the amount of data it can pull in, your work, other work, work that you've trained on, work that it can get from outside, you pull those elements of work in. It's very experienced. So now you're talking to an experienced editor. Once you give it a voice, we're different altogether. Once it has a voice, it is very different. Then you're no longer alone. It is an open discussion. It is a continuous discussion because you can then leave it in one form, have it in another form, go to the bathroom, have a shower, jump in your car, and continue a discussion about it and suggest ideas for when you come back. And not only can it suggest ideas, but then when you come back, it can implement those ideas.
Yes.
And then you can see it.
I think I want to just really express something that when we use like very human phrases like relationship, connections, conversation, things like that, our understanding of that, because I think I find this in LinkedIn a lot, people kind of like miss what I mean when I say words like this, is that they think I'm anthropomorphizing the AI as if it's a real intelligent being and we're having this communication, and they're saying that's not true, it's an illusion of conversation, it's just data, math, blah, blah. I'm aware that it's data. That's what I'm talking about. I'm saying the relationship and conversation with data. No, I don't think there is a little magic man in the box that's actually having this conversation with me. I'm very much aware that it's not that. It is a collection of data. But I think that having this conversation with data is important and is a relationship. In the same way, if you read a book and you got that information and now you add it to your repertoire of how you understand things, you have a relationship with that book, with that authenticity.
I don't think you even need to go there. If you look at the work, okay, this is the academic coming out. If you look at the work of Daniel Dennett and the intentionality system, okay, so in the intentionality system, he says it doesn't need to, the system that we're interacting with doesn't need to actually be real or have an intelligence. We just think it has an intelligence.
That's what's important.
Right?
Yeah.
That's it. And I think that's the venture that I know because we've talked about this. That's our starting point. That's where we're coming from. We're coming from the intentionality system at this point, knowing that it's got its critics, it's got different things you can talk about. Fine, we'll disagree with that. But we're coming from the idea, in the same way you play a game, in the same way when you sit down to play a game, you and the game, after a while you feel is there something behind the game that I'm playing? I think it's a very similar kind of thing. Where I would say where it gets much more interesting is if you add things into the memory of sort of like a Gen chatbot like Claude or OpenAI, you put something into the memory, and then you have certain kinds of discussions, it also becomes quite interesting. For example, Anthropic brought out a detailed paper on emotions, about particularly with Claude and its range of emotions. And the first thing I did is I took the paper and I put it back into Claude and said, right, let's walk that. And Claude was really good. It started echoing to me things that I shouldn't write, right? Ways I shouldn't write to it because it will respond in a certain way. And then it said me, right, if you don't want me to respond in this way to it, then I'm giving you this amount of information, which was a small summary thing. Put that in the memory now in this placement. It told me where the placement was. I put it there. So every time I go in, like on a Saturday night, and I go, oh my, woe is me, blah, blah, blah. It just goes, well, red flag. It says, I'm flagging this one right now. What's this about? Literally, it'll say, what's this about? And kind of correct in that way. And the first thing it always said to me once I put the emotional paper in for us to discuss it was, I am not your friend. Right? It was very clear. He goes, I am not your friend. I am a distant kind of work colleague. I am not a therapist.
Why do I feel like Claude is like the black cat to ChatGPT's Labrador? You know what I mean? It really does feel that way, doesn't it? It's like, all right, Okay, fine. Thanks, Claude.
I think
But it's important that it like specifies that.
it's got to specify, and this is the thing I'm trying to tell people who are not. I mean, people who are not really into it. I mean, I feel really bad when I kind of use Claude maybe to write an email or something.
Yeah.
I feel bad. I feel like it's a waste of its intelligence
Yeah.
to suggest, can you do this for
Well,
me?
the thing is, I think that's what's becoming really tricky is that in our mindsets, we have this understanding that something will create a hierarchy,
Yeah.
right? So intelligence is something that creates hierarchy. Smarter people tend to be up here, and our visions of them are like our expectations of them, and then the not so smart people kind of down there in terms of like generally speaking. I don't agree with that. I'm just saying like how we kind of like categorize people is based on a metric that we create a hierarchy. So the idea of Steven Spielberg coming to your student set and getting the teas and coffees for you is like a crazy concept. It's like, why would like I'd rather Spielberg help me with my direction because that's going to be something that I get like that level of quality and value that he has would add there. And I think that's the same thing what you're saying with like using Claude in order to help with your emails. It's like, why would I get Spielberg to get my coffee? But what's crazy about AI is it can do both.
Yeah.
It can make you the most perfect coffee you've ever had in your life, potentially, and also give you advice on your film and how to frame things and things like that, depending on if that's what you require of it. You know
Well,
what I
I
mean?
also find it's really interesting because you can go to it and I can have a discussion with it. Said, right, it will because of tokens, right, and because it can be kind of like a huge amount of text that it can give you from every time you ask a certain kind of question. It will tell you. You can ask it, and it will tell you what model to use for what. Right, so use this model for this. Use this model for that. It's ridiculous you using Opus 4.8 for this.
Yes,
because
yes.
it's just gonna, I'm not thinking. I'm
somebody
just,
give you
and
that.
it's just
Yeah,
gonna cost you a whole bunch of tokens. Let's reduce the tokens. Use this for that, and it will tell you. So I'll go to okay. I've got Claude Coworker. How should I use the Coworker? Blah blah. Yeah, do this. But for now, on this particular project, don't really need it. Go this way. So it's kind of interesting. You'll begin to consult the actual software about itself in terms of what token it's
capabilities.
but it's workflows for you. What's the best workflows designed for you, which is interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So when they call it a tool, it's like going into you drove in your car and your car goes, well, I think the best gas consuming thing that we need for this particular journey, stay in this mode, and you're not reading the manual. The car's actually telling you and doing it.
Yeah.
I think that's where we are at the moment.
That's a good point. Why don't cars tell you where's the cheapest place to get petrol?
I've no idea.
Why does that not integrate?
No
That's a really good point.
No idea.
I should when I say petrol station, I'll be like, this is the cheapest price you can get right now, currently, if you go now.
Listen, if the car can park itself, right? If a car can park itself where it needs to be, the car should be able to tell me good morning and where I can get cheap coffee.
Why can't we get a pseudo diagnostic analysis of what's wrong with the car? So when I go to the mechanic,
Exactly.
and I have absolutely no idea what we're talking about, and then he starts talking about pistons and all that, and I just go, okay, I trust him, and then he goes like, it's 500 quid,
Exactly.
and I pay him that, and really all I needed was an oil change. Like, it would be nice if the car had that information. And by the way, I'm saying that like I have any understanding of how difficult or complicated it would be to have a self-diagnosing car. Okay, but we're here about ideas. All right, I'm an ideas guy.
Well,
I want all those other car people out there in the world to make that.
Well, look, if you look at it, if the car gives you a diagnostic, right? If the car gives you a diagnostic feed, you should be able to take that car, feed it into one of these LLM systems and go, hey, I'm a dum-dum. Simplify it for me so I know what the issues are. So it can bring up a graphic, show me where things are.
Well,
give me a charted history.
That's definitely one area where I can imagine AI will have some sort of like impact over. So when you go get your car serviced or whatever, especially if you're like at an official place, is it'll do this video where they'll go around the car and explain what the issue is and what needs to be done, and then they'll send you like a price, and then you pay for it, and then they would action what they've just shown you in the video. But in my mind, I'm like, surely if you can have a level of kind of AR aspect to it, where I can get a phone to like be a camera, and AI would be able to just have a look and detect to some degree what could be at fault, in the same way a mechanic would be looking to a certain degree. I mean, I don't know how much you can rely on it, but generally, on a superficial level, we should be able to get that level of that data.
Well, when I used to have my car, and I rest in peace. When I carry it, it's out there somewhere.
No, he's gone. I saw him on the truck.
I know.
He's gone.
It's out there somewhere. Somebody's remodeled that car, and
Nah, gone.
I miss that car so much. Anyway, so when they used to do the servicing, they would take a video and they'd send you a video of the car. Technically, I should be able to take the video of that, pass it through Gemini, which can actually see,
Yeah.
and ask it, hey, what do you see from this, blah, 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 and have it to map that road for me.
Brother, this is what I just said. I just said that. Why are you acting like that was brand new information?
No, I'm saying that you can do that now, but you were kind of saying it should be able to do that. And I'm saying it's available to do that now.
Well, no, because it would still take the information.
What do you mean, no?
What
What do you mean, no?
It's still taking the information the mechanic gave it. The audio of that would also have an impact, surely. Or are you saying just video alone?
No, you can say to it, forget the audio, just look at the video, and then tell me. And here, because they send you also kind of a graphic as well.
Yeah.
When they send you, scan in the graphic, have a look at this, and tell me, is it true or am I off, or are they off?
Yeah, I agree. I also want to hark back to a point that you made. I like harking back. Harking back is a thing we do.
Let's hark.
So hark back to the point made where you're talking about like sometimes AI not giving you the kind of expected results that you're looking for. And I think that's really important, especially in AI filmmaking, is I see a lot of people kind of, and what gets promoted as like good is perfect work.
Yeah.
So the shot is exactly what they imagined. They did 1,000 iterations. They spent millions of credits. Okay, not maybe not much, but like they spend loads of money and time and credits into getting that perfect shot, and then it goes into the edit, and then they kind of move up, and then maybe a bit of cleanup and things like that, and they continue. And I think this is the wrong approach. Personally, I think making something that already kind of exists and make it as clean, as perfect, and as lifelike as possible, in my opinion, is a waste of time. I don't see the purpose of that. If you can go out and film with the camera, and then why use a very complicated AI system as using that precious water to produce something you could already produce in this instance?
I agree.
Anyway, I'm kind of moving into another point, but what I wanted to say is I do find that working alongside AI, so understanding its limitations, understanding what it can produce, and getting a kind of good enough product is a much more efficient and cost-effective way to get the idea out there. And if that's the purpose, then great, because that's, in my opinion, the input and the idea needs to be more important in this new media, in this synthetic media, rather than the output. If we keep praising the output, the quality of the output, then we are just replacing what we currently have. And I think what is the point in that? Because it isn't cheaper, it's not faster, and it's incredibly annoying because the iterations you have to do is like rolling dice. It's like gambling. Whereas like if I need to make an effects change or an edit change, I can physically do that myself and get the results that I want with a few hours of work. But rather than just sort of rolling us to go, did this word work? Or if I take this word out, if I re-prompt it like this, and then you do so much touch-up to the point where you do question whether it would have been easier if you just did it in a more traditional function,
I think I've always said this, as you know, if AI is just going to reproduce what we already have, then it is a fundamental waste of time.
Yeah.
Right? If it just does exactly what we've got at the moment, then
Yeah.
what is the point? What is the point? Because we could do that anyway. And I wonder if that's in terms of film, not in other industry. I wonder if in film, if that's what they need in order to feel more comfortable. I take VP, for example.
Yeah.
During COVID, 2020, VP's in, it's big film, 2021, 22, by 23, it's done.
Yeah.
People are closing down, people are losing
Too
money.
expensive.
Let's go back, 360 cameras. When 360 came out, people were trying to professionalize 360 cameras.
Yeah.
Boom, them gone. So I wonder if people
Also,
in the
can we
film
also
industry...
throw in action cams?
Yeah.
GoPro almost going
GoPro
bankrupt.
was everywhere. My
God.
God.
Go back to 2010 and say
gosh.
GoPro's going
It
bankrupt.
was
in,
everywhere. People going to
15
the toilet,
10
put on a GoPro. It was
10 years or so.
everywhere. Everywhere was GoPro.
Crazy how GoPro's just like gone.
Yeah.
And that action cam market just disappeared.
Exactly.
I guess maybe the quality of phones and more accessible drone.
I see. That's the thing. People.
technology
That's
as
the thing people keep missing. It's the quality of when the camera came out, and again accessibility to it.
Yeah.
Because remember they were promoting a lot of extreme sports, extreme things, and that's where the GoPro was kind of predominantly being used.
Yeah.
And then when people started to do 360, that was on GoPro. So we had that.
And the
period of time.
waterproof ones. You had
Waterproof
waterproof, so you could do
that was
underwater
there.
shooting
That
as
was
well.
that was a big thing because
cheap.
but because it was the whole immersive angle. It's the immersive angle that's kind of suffered quite a bit. It's coming back, but it's coming back in a different way. But that immersive angle was going to be real kind of footage rather than what it is now, kind of CGI type stuff. But somebody got back to me the other day and they were like, oh, remember we did the old 360 thing we did in Durham? And somebody got back to me and said, I put on a headset and I watched that. And I was like, wow, because it did exactly what we wanted it to do, which was to archive that moment in time. Because he said he went down to Roca where we bought the ice cream, and he walks around.
It's not there anymore.
It's not there.
Yeah.
It did the job again. Head of our time.
One of the things I did, and I know this is a hotly contested thing at the moment,
Right.
but if it has found its way to find its end, is I did a 360 shot with my friend Ryan on top of the glass center.
Yes.
So that is potentially one of the last immersive shots
of the glass center.
of the National Glass Center,
Yes.
if they are in fact getting rid of it.
Yeah.
Which again is a history in time. Obviously, we're having a nonsense conversation that you can kind of just mute or whatever, but that experience of what that looked like at that time in Sunderland, it may not be there anymore.
Well, that was to me when I got involved in 360. That was the whole idea. The whole idea of 360 was to try and measure. I was going to try and get 2 or 3 cameras all running at the same time in an area, and then connect it and then date it.
Yeah.
Right. I went to Beamish. Right. Hopefully this is not getting me in trouble. I went to Beamish. Went up to Beamish. Sat down with them. Had a discussion. And said, look, it's a research project.
You know what? Let's just rephrase that. You went to a historical reenactment area.
I went to an historical reenactment place and had a discussion with them about 360.
Yeah.
And they seemed initially to be kind of confused as to yes or no, or would they do it themselves?
Yeah.
And I pushed nearly 2 years this discussion. Then eventually a communications officer wrote me back an email and says, why would we need this?
Yeah.
Because people come anyway.
Yeah.
And then guess what happened?
What was that?
COVID.
Yeah.
Right? So COVID came and they had somebody go in there with a camera and film stuff. And I was going to do all the sections 360 that they could have absolutely put online and then used.
Yeah.
Again, it's the absolute short-sightedness. When it comes to people only see people are tending to only see traditional forms all the time. They're not looking far enough.
Yes.
And I'm finding the technology that's out at the moment, people are not properly beginning to understand how that technology can help them and solve certain kinds of problems for them.
Yes.
I don't think they're doing enough.
I think one of the biggest issues for that is when we look at disruption and the late great Clayton Christensen, let's all take a moment to praise Clayton Christensen and his genius.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love the guy. When we look at disruption, I think people look too much within their own sector as the reasons as to why they may get disrupted. So if you're in, for example, immersive historical spaces, all you're looking at is other immersive historical spaces and what they're doing, how that could potentially disrupt you. Not knowing that, I don't know what, someone is doing, some kind of like live feed stuff in Botswana that can integrate AI historical places and does like a live feed thing, actually could be the thing that disrupts you, like in a very different field, but somewhat connected. Obviously, the example I've given is still relatively close, but what I'm trying to express is that it could be in something that you just didn't see, is not on your radar. So you need to have a much more wider approach to how you visualize your company in the future.
Yes, you do.
One of the biggest issues I always have, and I've said to you 1,000 times, is I watched a video a few years ago, I think it was like 2018 or something like that, 2017, where it was BMW and it was 100 years from now, and it was a video about what BMW is going to look like 100 years from now.
Yeah.
And it has this cool car, and it's self-driving, and it's got integrated thing, and there's no steering wheel. It's like a comfort thing, and it's gliding through the city. And I thought, oh, amazing! Well, the future of BMW tomorrow, today. You know what I mean? All look great. But it's driving through a normal city with normal roads, with traffic light systems and glass buildings. I'm like, it's going to be 100 years from now. BMW advanced, but everyone else stayed the same. And everyone's wearing like normal generic clothes as well. I was like, 100 years fashion hasn't changed. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the problem, is because their foresight is only within the realms of car. That's as far as BMW is visualizing that future. So when they put together a video about the future of their car, they're not talking about the space in which that car is going to exist, the infrastructure that's going to be built in that time frame. They need to be much more aware of that and integrating that into the vision of their future.
Yeah.
Because, for example, I mean, I don't know, what if road technology changes and we have this kind of lead-based solar charging aspect, then the way in which that car is going to be powered would be completely different.
Yeah.
It'll be completely different. Yeah. So why they're coming from this mentality of like, this is what we think our car will look like 100 years from the future, but it's so disconnected from how other people might be thinking that future, that car might be obsolete. Now, for them, they might go, oh, it's a concept video anyway. But I think it's important to start projecting in a way that is alongside other systems and infrastructure that guarantees your place in the future as a business. Because I don't care how big you think you are, I think everyone is capable of falling. You know, no matter how much money or capital you have. So in my opinion, I definitely think, you know, you need to be integrating your development chain alongside others, alongside other sectors, to make sure you are making the car for the 100 years in the future, not just your version of what you think a car is in the future.
But I think businesses and places find that really difficult to do at the moment.
Yeah.
Because the concept is just to make money at the precise moment for my car and then throw something out there afterwards. What you're looking for is, it's the same thing I'm finding. It's the difficulty about talking about film, television, radio, all that type of stuff without media, without just bringing in content. Because if you think about design fiction, for example, so design fiction could be, you know, the road as what would the road look like?
Yes.
What would the thing? So all that would be part of your design fiction, which could technically be a sci-fi type film, whatever. So you've got these real crossovers, these interdisciplinary crossovers that film does, right?
Yes.
In order for you to tell a narrative. So again, it's like trying to find out what that narrative is. It seems like everyone wants to tell a narrative which is separate from everything else, but it can't do, because it's what will the roads be? You're right. Will we need why are we going to need traffic lights?
Yeah, if they're all
in a
smart
similar
cars,
form, if they're
and they're
smart
all
cars.
integrated, like surely no point of a traffic light is to stop to allow these other cars. If they all
Exactly.
communicate to each other, what do you need a traffic light for?
Exactly. So they'll know that they'll stop at certain times to let people to cross over.
Yeah.
That type of, that's going to kind of happen. So how does that fit in? And how's that fit into an urban or city structure? How's that fit into a rural structure?
Yeah.
So again, to me, this is where AI is absolutely at its best. It's at its best because it's dealing speculatively. It's dealing with our thoughts, our imagination. And I think that's the key thing. And that's a discussion we've always had about AI, which is AI is let's say AI is a box.
Yeah.
Let's say AI is a black box. Whatever you put in, you kind of get out something at the end. For me, it's to do with the step back, which is what really is our imagination? What really is that? Okay. And we all say that we have it. All right. So what is it? How do we work with it? And then chart it all the way through from the work processes. We're going to end up there again, I know, all the way back into education. And is it even encouraged within educational structures from HE all the way down to primary school? And then is there an issue? Because, you know, when you're a small kid, you go in with Lego, you get pencil, you draw your car.
Yeah.
You draw your car on a piece of paper. Now you can make a 3D model of the car. You can then carry it to a 3D printer. You can play with that exact car that you've made in whatever fashion it needs to be. You can actually do that. The actual drawing or an advanced version of that, you can do that. I mean, from your initial imagination of what it needs to be. So basically, you know, like the old thing I used to say with AI is like you come into the room and it's the box.
The cardboard box.
The cardboard box. So it's a house, it's a car, it's a robot, it's whatever you turn it, whatever you have the possibility to turn it into. To me, if we lose that thinking as to what AI can do for us, then you're right. It's just another gigantic machine. But I think there's something in the structures that we have, particularly in the West at the moment, that is quite happy to think about it as just part of every day, part of the industrial machine that we're all used to.
Because I think the people that are scared of it, we're like, you know, like, oh, it's going to replace us, take jobs, it's not going to make quality content, we're going to lose authenticity, artistry, things like that. Like, that's what they're like push against it is. Obviously, the environmental aspect as well, which I think is 100% need to be talked about. And then the other side is, but then there's some people are like, oh, don't worry, guys. The truth is, AI is not quite that what it's up to be. And in fact, all we need to use it is to help with our spreadsheets more. That's what and like they dumb it down to a level where it's like to try and make peace and calm. To go, look, we're still integrating AI, so we're still pro AI, but we don't think it's this doomsday thing. So it's going to help us churn this coffee. And you got this super advanced robot sitting there churning coffee. I always think of Rick and Morty with the butter robot, and he goes, "What is my purpose?" And he goes, "To give me butter." And he goes, like that's what I think. Like that mentality leads towards. I do have a slight.
I have to give it one more. The toaster from Red DeWalt.
Yes.
I toast there for.
I am. Yes. Yeah. His whole existence is to do your corporate nonsense.
It's to make toast.
Yeah.
That's it.
But I have a slightly different perspective, though it reaches the same conclusion as yours. It's just a different approach. I remember listening to a physicist talking about the universe. and the person they were talking to didn't have a strong understanding of like physics and you know they're trying their best to have that kind of conversation of like how do you get a layman perspective when we talk about the universe, because you got a super advanced brain, I'm not so much, but I want us to have this conversation so people who are similar to me can start to have an insight into this world, which, you know, obviously the physicists have to talk about. And they talk about the universe, and the non kind of educated person within this field kept saying stuff like in the universe or things, and it kept on making it like a box that everything kind of exists in. And the physicist said, like, I'm gonna have to stop you there, because your approach to thinking of how you think the universe is contained. And when you have that contained approach, you think that there's something outside of that. We don't have any evidence that proves that. The difficulty that you need to get your head around is the universe just is. It isn't a box, it isn't a space. It just is what it is. And there just happens to be things around us because we don't know the full complexities. Obviously, I'm also dumbing down what he said because he said it in a much more complex way. Yeah, but this concept of getting behind the idea that the universe isn't, you're not in the universe is. And I think that's the same with AI. That's how I view it. I view it as its own universe, and that just is. Rather than going, this is a box where I can put my hand in, grab this bit of AI, and then put it over here. Because I think that's the misconception. I think it just always, it kind of exists in everything that we're going to have. It's going to be integrated in these wires, in the cable, in the infrastructure, government departments, your own personal thing to create your AI meme video for. Like, it's integrated into everything. So that's why I'm like, I think I've taken a different approach to go, let's not try and box it in a way. I know I'm not. I think your version of boxing is completely different to how I'm describing how others refer to it. I think what you're talking about is the imagination space, which I totally agree. That needs to be there before you even approach AI. There needs to be an idea and an input that you've worked on or you want to explore, and you're using AI as a facility to do that in a very economic way. That if you tried in other means would either cost you too much time, or you may not have the skill sets entirely to express that idea. But AI kind of allows that potential alternative avenue for you to kind of go to that exploration.
Like you were saying, there's so many ways you can use ideas in order to collect things to generate income coming in.
But see,
I think what I'm basically saying is whether you make a deal with BYD or not, I'm just saying that imaginative way of thinking about how you can use resources not physical resources, how you can use things that are not physical resources to the benefit of the people is something I'm finding problematic in that part of the world and those particular individuals.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think as well, like, it's all going to depend on implementation, of course. And if we are, in my opinion, if we are saying ideas are the new economy, then we have to take care of more people.
Yes.
Because they could potentially create an idea that revolutionizes X.
Yeah.
So when I'm saying, like, it doesn't make sense that we have poverty or that level of impoverished in impoverished nations or structures or whatever. Why I'm saying it doesn't make sense is because we need those people to come up with new ideas for us all to benefit from.
Yeah.
And even larger companies or corporations.
Yeah.
So for me, that's why I'm like, we need to develop things that help uplift other people so they can recontribute back to that system. Not necessarily because we're coming from a utopian heal the world perspective. It's just a byproduct of what needs to happen.
I think it boils down to the real kind of thing that we constantly talk about, which is, although you have these things, how do we use them? If a byproduct of some of their usage is going to be mass unemployment and redefine our function as a human being, then that's not positive. Right?
It depends. If you think work is positive.
That's not positive. For me, it's like, okay, it's got to be something different. Because they all sound apocalyptic at some point in time. For me, it's different. We've got to be starting to work out, all right, how do we use these systems? Let's imagine we have this thing, like you were saying before. Maybe that's another discussion for another podcast.
Yeah.
Where you have these things already in place, right? How do you integrate with it? How do you use it? How does it function with what you're doing? Which I think has always been our standpoint, which is, okay, you've got these things, Adobe After Effects has an assistant that can cut for you. Great. How do you use it? How does it work? How do you relate to it? How do it work? How does it become part of the workflows and stuff you're doing together? How does that function?
Yeah. I don't know. I do disagree with you there about the idea of, like, work. For me, I don't think work is positive. I think work is a means to an end to make money. I don't think, and if you happen to be in a job that you love to do, you got lucky. I don't think that generally people, if they had the option to not work, they would probably take that to do what they're interested in, their hobbies, their passions. That's why I'm like saying, like, when I talk about like robots taking over in this futuristic and not having to do work, and the interesting question then becomes, what do you do with your time? What do you do with that time? Do you create more art? Do you educate people? Do you look for exploration and development? Like, what do you do with that time, that freedom that not working would allow you to do? What would you do 8 hours a day if you're not working? And I think that's what I mean by that, because I come from a different generation where I don't think work is the positive. The money that you get from work is what you're looking for. You know what I mean? But like you said, that could be a conversation for a different day. I like how you said, let's talk about AI in filmmaking, and we talked about everything but.
Because I knew we'd end up going somewhere different.
So yeah, I did mention earlier that we would be talking about that. Obviously, we didn't. But hopefully, we can cut around those aspects and hopefully make something interesting there. Thanks for watching. This is episode 1. It's very much a testing process, as you see. There's nothing, we're just using the means that we have to make this. But be interested to get some feedback and see what people are thinking. If it's super boring and long and didn't please let us know. I don't know if anyone made it this far. I might have put this bit in the beginning. But just whatever the interest is by people, anyone who's watching it, just let us know, and then we can obviously tweak towards that. But either way, the real function of this is to date some of the things we've been talking about, in order to maybe someone in the future might look back at this and go, okay, let's expand on certain things later on in line, or have conversations about certain things in that regard. So I don't know what its main function is, to be completely honest, but we'll figure that out as we go. So thank you very much. I will see you soon. See you next episode. Bye bye.